So moving into Unit 3, we get into what we call statistics. So statistics, again, is pretty much a hands-on type of activity as well. Uh, so again, we're just going to do some intro to statistics. So some of the definitions that you'll come across is first off, what is statistics? So statistics is really all about how to collect, organize, analyze, and interpret data in order to make informed decisions. So it teaches the basic concepts and methods that allow us to understand patterns. It helps us measure uncertainty and helps us draw conclusions about a larger group based on a smaller sample. So a lot of times in statistics, we don't really have the ability to collect the data for the whole population, if you will. So usually we create what's called a sample size. So our statistics will mainly be dealing with sampling, not a whole population. So some of the formulas vary a little bit from a population to a sample. So from what I've seen in this section, we will mostly be dealing with statistics involving a sample of the population. So again, statistics is supposed to help you make sense of the data so you can answer real world questions using evidence rather than just guesswork. So that's a big part of making decisions based on evidence as opposed to just making a guess. And again, it's very important, especially if you're trying to start a business and stuff, that you're not just guessing what the people like, but you feel confident that from your research, you feel like you're grounded in solid evidence to move forward. So when it comes to statistics, the first thing we're getting into in 12.1 is what's called visual displays. So that's the first thing on the agenda is visual displays. The first type of visual displays is what's called a frequency distribution. So in your assignments, you'll be asked some questions about a frequency distribution. So a frequency distribution is actually a table. It's organized and displays that show how often each or group of values occurs in a data set. So the frequency distribution, just like the word frequency says, how often does a value occur in our sample set, our data set? So by seeing this frequency, this helps us see patterns in the data by showing how many of each type there are. So the key parts of a frequency distribution, you're going to see categories or classes. Some books use the word bins there. So classes or bins. So categories, things like that. So values or intervals that are in groups or classes, categories, bins. So there's some vocabulary there that's very much the same. So we'll see categories or classes, frequencies. The frequencies is the number of the data points that fall into each category or class. So the number of items that fall in each category. Some other things that we may get extensions on is there's a relative frequency, which is a proportion, or proportion also implies percentage or decimal math, if you will. So for instance, 0.20 would be a decimal, or we would also call that 20%. So relative frequency kind of creates what we call a proportion, percentage, or probability, because remember, probability is a percentage concept. The other type of frequency we see is what's cumulative. Cumulative kind of members is kind of totaling. So cumulative is kind of totaling. It's also kind of called what's called a running total of the frequencies. So we add the frequencies from one class to the other until we get to the total number of frequencies. So those are the key parts of a frequency distribution, classes and frequencies, and then we may come across relative frequency and cumulative frequency in our assignments as well. So question one, we're given some sampling of data. So this is the amount in dollars of the monthly electric bill for 30 households is shown to the right. Construct a frequency distribution and add a histogram for the data set. So our first focus is going to be on a frequency distribution. Now, one of the easy ways to do a frequency distribution is to somehow reorganize this data where it's a little bit more manageable. You should see in your homework this little box here. So let me go over here to your homework and look at this from this perspective. So we see this little box here. This little box here allows me to open up Excel, if you will. So I'm going to open this in Excel. And so up here in the top right-hand corner, it downloaded that to my computer. So I see this little thing up the top right, see where my little mouse is. So if I click on this document, it's an Excel spreadsheet. So if I click on that, it'll open up that document, or I should say that spreadsheet. So the data now gets put into the spreadsheet. Then there's what's called enable editing. So if I hit enable editing, I can now kind of mess with it. So one of the things I can do here is I can sort the data because that's going to help me see the frequencies a little bit better. So if I click the A here, notice how the A actually highlights the whole thing, highlights the whole column. And then you should see the word data up here towards the top. See where my mouse is, see this word data. So we're going to click on data. And under data, you should see this A to Z, Z to A. We also have this one here if we have more than one column. Right now, we just have one set of columns. Look like I lost my highlighting. So let me click that again, highlight it. Click A to Z, and it should sort my data. So we have 30, 49, 53, so forth and so on. So what I can do is try to open up both of these. So I'm going to go back to my screen here. So there's I've got all my windows open up here, but notice how there's this little box here to the top right. Notice how I can kind of do a split screen. So if I click on that, whoops, try that again. So I just hover over it, I should say, and then come down here and just click on this one here. It should do a split screen. So what I can do now is I can kind of see my homework over here. See if I can get this to, let me slide my spreadsheet over a little bit so it's not so cramped. So the frequency says how many occur between 40 and 49. So notice how 30 and 49 are in that category. So I could put a 2 here to get my frequency. How many are between 50 and 99? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm seeing 8 pieces of data that are between 50 and 99. So I can put an 8 there. 100 to 149. So that's now we're here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 are between 100 and 149. 4. Again, if we need to count that again, 1, 2, 3, 4 sounds good. 150 to 199, so 150 to 199. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of data are there. And then we have 200 to 249. So 1, 2, 3, nope, 249. Try it again. 1, 2 are between 200 and 249. 250 and 299. So 250, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there. And then 300 to 349. So it looks like 2 there. So by sorting it, it helps me count a little bit quicker. So if I check my answer, let's see if I had any luck there. Yeah, so that worked out. Okay, so then it moves me to my histogram. So I'll pause the video there. Again, watch this video if you need to see how I export that out to Excel.